Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Friday, April 1st, 2022, and tonight we're going to cover strange disappearances and missing 411, and just a brief overview of all of that because there is way too much to try to fit into one show, and I'll have a couple of suggestions near the end of the show as to where to look at for other sources and shows on this topic because, again, this is just way too big to cover. I'm interested, but again, there's just so much out there. As always, you can find the podcast, all episodes of the podcast, and links to social media, ways to donate, and other ways to contact me on the podcast page, which is salcidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always looking to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences that you'd like to share, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Always happy to either read those on the show or have you on to talk about them with me on the show. And we can arrange that. Just contact me and we can go from there. I usually prefer Discord for these streams because it's easier to do that and have a live chat during the stream. But if anyone ever needs to just do a Skype or a Zoom call and I can just find some way to record that, then we can do that as well. And then I'll just post the episode after the fact. So, but I will say that doing the streams is can be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, especially when you get people that add interesting ideas or comments or questions to the discussion. I would definitely encourage anyone that likes the show to join the Discord, and then if you're able to do so, to be here for these live streams. So I've already shared the articles that I'm going to cover briefly in the chat here, and I'll put those also in the episode description as well. So this started out, this idea kind of came along with the trilogy of episodes we did the last 3 Fridays on mountains and the paranormal. And one thing that we found when looking into this is a connection to the missing 411 and just strange disappearances and encounters in general near some of these mountains. So I thought it'd be good to just touch on this in this episode here. And then the other thing that we'll be covering next Friday is weather and the paranormal, because that also ties both to the mountains and to the disappearances and missing 411 in some cases. Basically, weather acting odd or suddenly getting worse when there are searches about to happen or happening, so that the searches can't happen, and the person that is missing basically stays missing longer. So I guess a good place to start with this is the person that started this missing 411 thing. And I'm not sure how to say his name exactly. David Paulides. Excuse me. He is the one that made several books on this topic. I've heard that some of them can be harder to buy than others. But I would definitely recommend, if you feel like getting into this more, into basically all of the individual cases Um, find the books if you can, but also just look around online. There's a lot of commentary on this topic from a lot of websites, and like I said, there's a couple of podcasts I'll mention near the end of this episode where you can find several episodes, I believe, each on this topic. So, um, so yeah, that's basically where this starts tonight. And that is again with David Paulides. He is. So I'm just going to check out this article here that I found on this. So let's see here. Where is the beginning of this? Oops, I'm at the very end. Okay, so David is a former police officer who now investigates and writes about strange disappearances and the possible conspiracy behind them. That is known as Missing 411. And it's a series of books and I believe a couple of films now about people that have gone missing in national parks, but also other places. And he basically thinks these cases are unusual and mysterious. Of course, even though not everyone agrees with that, which is okay. And so again, he was part of. He was a police officer for a while and a detective, and from there, let's see here. He did start out looking into Bigfoot, although I've heard some debate and discussion as to whether or not he thinks any of the missing 411 is or can cases can be attributed to Bigfoot. So if you all here in chat have anything that you know about this, I'd be happy to read your comments also during the show. But so from there, let's see here. As far as the missing 411, according to Paulides, he started to look into the subject when he was doing research in a national park, and an off-duty park ranger found him and explained that he was worried about this some of the disappearances which happened in the parks, and the ranger asked Paulides to research this, and that's where Paulides says he uncovered evidence suggesting negligence on part of the Park Service in failing to locate the missing people. But he also went on and basically investigated more than just that, just the parks in the U.S., and looked into disappearances of people from across the world. And of course he says that a lot of these these cases of disappearances defied basically logical explanations. So I think that covers basically where he starts, and so we can get on to this other article here. Now, this first one that I shared was from it was basically just a Wikipedia article on Paulides. I don't use that for details, but sometimes just to get basic descriptions of things, it works. It seems to work okay. But this next article is from Mysterious Universe, and it's titled "The Missing 411: Some Strange Cases of People Spontaneously Vanishing in the Woods." And again, all these links are in the chat, and they'll be in the episode description there. And so there's a lot of cases. There's way too many to cover in one episode. Um, so let's see here. I'm just looking to see where this starts with the individual cases. Okay. So the first case this article mentions is the disappearance of an 84-year-old theology professor. His name is Dr. Maurice Demetz or Demetz. In 1981, he was mainly known for fire and brimstone, basically religious talk, and many writings on how he basically more into that topic. So basically, he was into religion and all of that, which is fine, of course, obviously. But he became more well known because of his disappearance. He would go out. He liked to go out and collect rocks, and that's what he was doing out in Pike National Forest in Douglas County, Colorado, along with a friend of his named David McSherry. This was something they would do often because of Demet's age and health issues. So they would go together so that McSherry could keep an eye on Demet's and make sure everything was okay. So, and McSherry would check on Demet's every so often, and so he did that basically every 15 minutes or so. But then at one point, he was only about 100 yards away from Demet's, and went to check on him. And just about 10 minutes after he last saw the doctor. But this time, there was no sign of him, of this doctor. Of course, McSherry called out the doctor's name, Demet's name, and got no response, which was odd because there's no way he thought that Demet's could have gotten very far because he had bad knees, really bad knees. And so not only was Demet's gone, but all of his tools were gone as well. Tools that would be used for, I guess, collecting rocks and so McSherry thought maybe that Demetz had tried to go back to the car, but he wasn't there either. So that's when a complete search of the area was done, but no trace of him was found. And so the official search went on for about 5 days, and nothing was found. No trace of him. None of his equipment, none of his tools. No sign of injury, no sign of blood anywhere in the area. And the case caught the attention of Polides, and who wanted to look into it because of the location. And it was basically an area known as Devil's Head, which has been basically known in native folklore as a haunted place, inhabited by evil spirits, and which also had other strange disappearances in that same area. So, Pilates created a miniature documentary on it, and he showed this to local authorities, and but nothing really came of it. So he's basically still missing, at least according to this article here. I know in some cases people have been found later on after things are published and people are said to be missing still. But again, this is just an example of how these things can happen. And I guess here real quick I can mention that a couple of good places to look for more information about this as far as podcasts go. There's two different shows that I listen to. One I listen to regularly, and I was actually on it recently, which is Where Did the Road Go? He and the host Sarai Askath and another couple of podcast hosts and creators did the few episodes on this topic. Now those other creators also have a podcast I listen to once in a while, or at least I used to listen to it more often than I do now. But just because of time. But this other podcast is called Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and they cover a lot of ancient mysteries and some paranormal stuff, and then anomalies, and so they've done some episodes on the missing 411 thing as well. So if you look up those two names, those two podcasts, I can include links in the chat here at the end to their websites. I'm sure I can find them real quick. And then just maybe search for Missing 411. You should be able to find some episodes on that and hear more about it. And of course, looking around online for articles, I'm sure they'll find stuff there too. But so that's just an example. Let's see how we're doing time here. Okay. I will go through one more case here. Again, there are a lot of them. But just to give you an idea of some of what's going on here. And some of these cases have endings that are even more frightening in a way than just disappearances. So this one says, in the summer of 1958, there was a 10-year-old boy named Bobby Bizup, B-I-Z-U-P, was at a camping retreat, and it was at the Rocky Mountain National Park, along with a group of other kids. On August 15th, Bobby, who was partially deaf, went down to a place called Cabin. Oh, I lost it. Went down to a place called Cabin Creek in order to do some fishing. And at the time, there was nothing unusual about that, since there were camp counselors nearby, and the creek was a popular place for fishing among the other people, the other boys in that camp. Excuse me. When it was time to head back for dinner, one of the counselors got the Bobby to head back with him, and the two began walking towards the nearby camp. According to the counselor who was with Bobby at the time, the boy was right behind him. But then when the counselor glanced back over his shoulder, the boy was gone. So basically a sudden disappearance, even though he'd been following close behind just moments ago. And so the counselor was sure that the boy was just hiding and playing a game. So he looked around and called out to the boy, but there was no sign of him. Even visually, of course, the boy was partially deaf. I believe there was, maybe in this article or somewhere else I read, he did have hearing aids. But when other counselors were called and no one can find him, authorities were contacted, and there was a search for 9 days in the area, involving nearly 400 police officers, volunteers, and uh, airmen from Denver's Lowry Air Force Base, or Lowry. They even had aircraft and tracker dogs, but no trace was found. And so he'd basically been right behind this counselor, and people thought it was impossible for him to have gotten so far so fast on his own that he couldn't be found. And apparently, there was a reported sighting of the boy 15 miles away in a hardware store of Bobby, but it was basically in Estes Park. But at the time of the incident, this was basically determined to be not a very reliable lead because no one else could figure out how Bobby could have gotten so far on his own in that amount of time. So, and this was solved, but there was still more mysteries when it happened in June of 1959, almost a year after going missing. Okay, this is where the hearing aid thing came in. There was some torn clothing that was found, along with a broken hearing aid and a few bone fragments in a remote area, 2,500 feet up Mount Meeker in the middle of nowhere, and about 3 miles from where the boy had gone missing. And of course, the bones were determined to be from that boy. But it wasn't an entire body, but it was also an area that had been extensively searched beforehand. Also, again, like I said, this ties into the whole mountains thing. Again, this is near a mountain. And the area, so no one could figure out how Bobby could have possibly gotten there, or even why he would have wanted to head up a mountain, basically, to begin with, because most people, according to this article, who are lost instinctively head towards lower ground. Also, so yeah, these are just a few bone fragments, but there was no other physical trace of the boy leading, basically, so no one knows where the rest of his body went. And it's still a mystery. So this is another one of those things that happens in some cases where when people disappear, they're found later on, and in areas that have been searched already. So, and again, the mountains. So, very strange there. So that's just a couple of cases. Again, I don't even know how many there are. I've heard people talking about dozens or more. So, this third article here, again, these last two, the one from Mysterious Universe and this one, they're both very much in-depth articles. So I'm going to kind of skip through parts of this article here to the points that are more mysterious than others. So, in some cases, people at the missing people have been found in unusual positions, like face down on the ground or the wrong side up in water for their gender, which is, I don't know what that means. But also, there's cases of people being found. I've heard this before. When they're found in areas that were already searched, they're found to be not nearly as, and this is kind of a little bit morbid, but they're found to be in better condition physically in terms of there isn't as much decay as people expect there to be for as long as they're gone in some cases. Um, Another thing is, in some cases, they're found with basically in water that, again, in areas that was already searched, were already searched. And even in other cases, they were found with high amounts of chemicals or um, certain drugs within their systems that don't make sense for where they were at. So there's cases of, again, only parts of their clothing or their in some cases their body being found. In some cases they are found alive, but they have no memory or limited memory of what happened during the time they were missing. So let's see here. Yeah, so that's what this article is just. Goes through a series of points here that, and the article talks about kind of how likely or unlikely things are to be the case, and that's a lot deeper than I feel like I'm qualified to go into. In some cases, the people that are found deceased in these areas, there's no identifiable cause of death, or if they are found alive, they have an unexplained fever, which is odd. So, another thing is, in some cases, people are quickly separated from the group before disappearing, often the first or the last person in a line. And sometimes sometimes this happens after a person says that they're not feeling very well or they're tired. And that's how they end up falling behind the rest of the group. And then they end up disappearing. So, mentions the missing clothing, or in some cases, clothing is found on the person, but it's on either inside out or backwards. So there's a lot of odd factors to a lot of these cases. So let's see here. Let me check on the chat again. But okay, so we're good. All right. So I'll just keep on going through this article here. That people have found in some of these cases that seem unusual. In some cases, the people that go missing, they appear to forget their wallets or phones at home or in the car before leaving and going into remote places, or in some cases they go missing suddenly while on the phone, with the phone being hung up or losing power, or ending up missing. This is the phone ends up being missing or destroyed, or dry when it should have been wet, or unused when there was a signal. So that's a whole other set of circumstances there. Getting back to the electricity again, in a way. So let's see here. I'm just scrolling through this more and more. I think I've gotten through a lot of the points. Let me see here. Okay, so in some cases, the person disappears along with a dog, but then the dog often finds its way back or is found unharmed. So it's like they go away with the dog, and then the dog is found, but the person isn't. So let's see here. What's the next one? This is something else that is kind of associated with possible cryptid sightings, Bigfoot sightings in some cases. is that sometimes people disappear while they are picking berries or mushrooms. That's an odd one. I heard of the berries before, but not the mushrooms. And let's see here. Talks about this unusually high percentage of disappearing people being. This is according to this article, so I don't know for sure, but either male or very very young or college level, college age, or very old, or with some kind of apparent or hidden injury or disability, or in some cases found they happen to have exceptionally high or low intelligence or IQ. So the extremes there, or even in some cases, instead again the opposite kind of thing here, where people that are extremely physically fit, like runners or athletes or soldiers or hunters, that's a whole other thing too. That go missing. So there's kind of extremes on both ends of the age and the, I guess, the intelligence, which that's kind of always tricky to me because there's different kinds of intelligence, but and then also the physical fitness of the person that goes missing. So, and let me see what the rest of this says. I think we're getting near the end of this article. Okay, also, the locations where people disappear often have the word devil in their name and tend to be close to either water or boulder fields or large granite formations. Again, with the water and the stone having energy. I've heard in some cases of people where they disappear in boulder fields and no one knows how or why. There's these, so it's almost as if the boulders kind of may be cryptids in and of themselves, which I've heard of before in other places, that somehow kidnap or capture, or maybe even, this is probably the wildest and also the most horrifying in a way, in some cases maybe even just envelop and almost like, in a way, eat the individual. So, that's a whole other, again, getting into more, I think, cryptid and or fae or fairy-like situations. Let's see here. There's also, in some cases, there's strange coincidences in connections of some of the cases, as in names being the same or similar, that names of people that are involved being the same or similar. That one I don't know. That's kind of, I guess if it's like a name like Smith, I think it mentions this in the article. If it's a common enough name, then that could be nothing. But then that also depends on the names. So, now there are cases where people are found. So yeah, I think that basically covers it. This is just going over again everything that I already did. So I think that pretty much covers these articles that I shared in the description. Or I mean in the chat here. And again, this is very much just a brief look into this topic. But again, it seems to be connected in some cases to mountains. And another thing that this article I didn't think mentioned, I didn't see it there. I've heard of it before in other shows. I believe maybe even in some of those Where Did the Road Go? And then Brothers of the Serpent podcast episodes. This strange thing that happens where when a person is missing, either right when they go missing or right as the search is going to start, weather becomes basically gets bad enough where it stops or slows down search efforts. So basically storms whether it's thunderstorms or possibly in some cases winter storms. If there's too much lightning and or snow coming down, it's going to slow things down. You don't want to be out there in the middle of a huge thunderstorm. And some of these show up just, it seems like, out of the blue. Right in that same time as these cases, these events that happen. And that's kind of where I think it's a good place to leave off at. And also, that is where we will begin with next Friday's episode. Is weather and the paranormal. And so I think that basically does it for today. Hopefully, I hope some of this made a little bit of sense as to why this is so strange, at least in some cases. And I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all for listening, whether it's to the live stream or the YouTube or podcast feeds. I definitely appreciate all your support. We made it to 2,100 downloads today, total for the podcast. So, and that we were just at 2,000 downloads last Friday, I believe it was. So it's really things are going well. And I really appreciate everyone's support. One more thing. Next week I'll start my new schedule for shows. Same time. The time is not changing. But new schedule in terms of the topics that I'll be covering each day. Mondays will be the news show that we just started. I just started this week. Tuesdays will be true paranormal stories from the web. Wednesdays will be book review shows, and that will include, when possible, the comic book review shows that I do with Derek once a month. We did that earlier this week as well. That was a lot of fun. Thursdays will now also be more true paranormal stories from the web. And then Fridays will stay as they are, which is these deep dives into specific topics. So, and I'll put that in the Discord as well, in written form, so everyone knows. So, again, thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all on Monday on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.